Hello, I'm Dr. Pierre Samaan, and it's great being back with you as we continue in our series, Parenting with Purpose. Parenting is a lot of work. We can do it, though. I'm sure as we keep working hard at it, we get better and better. Let me continue with this book plug as we have to keep mentioning our book, new book, Unmasking Addiction. I'm excited about it. It's just now going out into the marketing phase, if you have any issues with addictions, if you have friends or family members, this is a book to consider. By incorporating Christian counseling and biblical insights, the book resonates deeply with readers who value their faith and want to integrate it into their healing process. As I've mentioned many times before, studies have shown that faith-based recovery programs seem to have a much better recovery rate, especially over a long period of time. It provides spiritual comfort and guidance, which is often a significant motivator for those in recovery. So this is an ideal book if you're a family member, if you're someone in recovery. I've had some addicts that are considering going into recovery, and they've taken the book and they've taken time to read the book, and it's encouraged them to, yes, take that next step into recovery. Perils of safetyism is what we're discussing today as we talk about parenting with purpose, how overprotection undermines resilience in modern youth. I'm going to tell you something, that overprotection is, it's not a good thing. There's a balance that's needed there. And if we look at what's happening in the colleges today, the universities, it's like a spirit. You know, in Christian counseling and in the Bible, the word spirit can mean attitude, or it can mean a demon, a demonic force, an evil force of some kind. In some cases, it can be both, certainly. It's as if there's a spirit going around the colleges, the universities nowadays, particularly the public ones. A college student walks into the counseling center looking distressed, and the student says, I think I'm experiencing severe emotional trauma. And the counselor goes, oh no, what happened? The student goes, I got a B+ on my taste, on my paper. Oh, okay. The counselor goes, well, let's take a deep breath. Now breathe, take a deep breath, relax. Did you try reframing the experience as a learning opportunity? And the student says, learning? That sounds like microaggression against my comfort zone. Oh, I see. The counselor says, would you like to file a resilience complaint? Yes, the student says, I demand reparations, preferably participation trophies. That's silly, but that seems to be the way it's going, isn't it? Yeah, reparations. I've been offended, or this or that. It's an attitude. And yet it's an attitude that causes more trouble. It doesn't build up, it tears down. It doesn't make sense to the common-minded, the reality-based person, common sense person. It doesn't make sense. Why would they think that? Why would they be that way? Well, safetyism versus resilience has something to do with it. And that's what we're talking about, that finding that balance of, what's going to work there. We need both. We need both. We need safety. We need resilience. And we have to find where's the balance of just enough risk-taking, but not too much protection. And if we can find that balance in raising our children that way, they're going to thrive. Well, the brain operates in basically two primary systems. So there's, it's a complicated thing up there, but if we just kind of bring it down to two systems, it's discovery mode and defense mode. We have spoken many times, and I'd encourage you to go back into the YouTube series on the brain where we discuss it in a little more detail. But you have the upper room of the brain, the top half of the brain, bottom half of the brain. The discovery mode is located in that top half of the brain. Your prefrontal cortex, your cerebral cortex, it's all the good thinking's up there. You discover your thinking, your details, and your planning, and all that good stuff is up top. And I call that the upper room, that good place to be with the Lord up there. And then that bottom half, well, the defense mode prioritizes safety by responding to perceived threats. So if you think of that, what does that mean? It's fear-based. Fear-based is in the basement of the brain, your fight or flight center, the limbic system of the brain. It's looking for threats. It's looking to protect. And in that protection, there's fear. Why do I need to protect? Well, because fear is there. And if fear is there, there's selfishness because there's self-preservation. And if that's occurring, then we're in a defensive mode. And modern youth, particularly those born in 1995, and this is research, so this has been studied out and proven out that born after 1995 increasingly operate in a defense mode. They're not operating in the upper room of the brain where the discovery mode is located, where the good thinking is located. They're functioning in a defense mode. And so we see that going on in the universities, the colleges, the streets, the certain particular areas of the country and the world. We see that occurring. And it makes sense when we look at it from this standpoint. This heightened sense of alertness contributes to anxiety and limits their ability to embrace opportunities. It's not contributing to hope and adventure. I always think of something new and different. Oh, it's an adventure. Think of it that way, that I'm not so fearful in stepping out and taking that risk. We need to train our kids up to look at those adventures and take those little risks, those healthy risks, then they're going to thrive as a result of it. And unfortunately, since 1995, according to the studies, it's been going the other way. So, but there's a concept that is I guess we could say a new word, anti-fragility. Anti-fragility is a word that was coined in 2012. And it's more than resilience. Systems that grow stronger from stress. Contrast with fragility, which breaks under pressure. So if you're fragile, you're going to break under pressure. If you're too sensitive, there's a likelihood you're going to have easier time to break under pressure than someone who is less sensitive. It doesn't mean they're not going to break, but there's that balance there that there needs to occur of compensating in healthy ways. I'm very sensitive on the inside. I'm a very sensitive person. That helps me in counseling because I have a spiritual gifting of discernment. I can read into things, read into people very quickly, very easily. But that sensitivity has to be there to do that. So there's empathy in that regard, a gift of empathy. However, if we don't set boundaries to those gifts, those abilities, or those strengths that we might have, they can turn to weaknesses. And that's why it's important to have the boundaries. But where do we learn boundaries? Well, we learn them from dad and mom. We learn them from growing up and experiencing what's out there, not what's in here, what's out there. And as we experience those things, we're gaining intelligence, we're gaining experience, we're gaining understanding, we're gaining insights, as well as knowledge. Knowledge is through all of that. Well, that helps us to be less fragile. It gives us anti-fragility, as they're using in this word. Like other complex systems, the human mind thrives under challenges and stressors. So if that's the case, then we need to take risks. If we're risk aversion to consequences, we're not going to thrive. That's common sense. A risk-averse culture leads to overprotection, stifling growth and innovation. Look at just the recent example of the fires in California, the environmentalists afraid of taking the risk of the smelt, the Delta smelt fish disappearing. I don't know that they would disappear, but let's shut off the water and that's better. Let's do that. Well, look at the result of what happened because they were afraid to take the risk. If I'm stepping on a rock in my bare feet, and each time I step on it, it hurts, but I'm afraid to take the risk of stepping in the flat soil, the smooth sand around the rock, because I don't know what's going to happen there, so I'll keep stepping on the rock, I'll keep hurting my foot. I'm not taking a risk, I'm risk aversive at that point, and yet I'm hurting myself over and over and over again. And in doing so, I'm not learning, I'm not thriving, I'm stuck. And the pain is getting worse, the foot is hurting more until I'm, let's say, crippled, until I can't walk anymore on that foot. Now, it's a silly little example, but basically that's what's happening. I'm afraid to take the risk of losing the Delta smelt fish. What could happen if that should occur? Well, sometimes we have to take a risk to let things naturally occur in order to grow and thrive. And many times when we do that, we discover, look at this soft sand around this rock. Wow, this is a whole lot better than stepping on that rock. Let's just keep going in that way. And now we're feeling a whole lot better and moving on. Well, we want to move on. We want to raise our kids to be able to move on. So overprotected children develop increased anxiety and fear. Well, okay, watch TV, watch the news. What are you seeing? It's right in front of you. What are you seeing in the universities? What are you seeing on the streets and wherever else? Increased anxiety and fear. They're so afraid of something new or something different that they rebel, they fight against it at all costs. And then when that thing occurs, well, I don't know. I have to keep fighting against it because, it's just something new, it's different, it's whatever. And they keep thinking that way or doing that way. Well, we raise our children to be like that, and we don't want them to keep being anxious and fearful, so we have to let them take those risks. Lack of necessary problem-solving skills is a typical consequence of overprotecting our children. Struggle with resilience in adulthood is another consequence that occurs. They're just not going to do well out there. What are we seeing on TV? What are we seeing in the universities and the colleges on the street? They're not doing that well out there, are they? The world isn't doing that well. Like trees needing wind to grow strong in the root, to help those roots to grow strong, children need challenges to develop that resistance, that resilience. It's the wind that makes the tree stronger as the roots dig in and get hold. Well, it's the stress that makes us stronger. Now, too much stress, no, we don't want too much wind. But if we're stronger, we can handle more. And if we can handle more, it makes us even better. The role of free play and risk in development is an important thing to realize, that if we keep the balance of risk and safety in a healthy zone, then we're going to thrive. And free play, being able out there just to go and do something, play with the kids. When I was young, we were in the backyards playing football or baseball or hide and seek and whatever else all the time. I mean, it was just constant. And nighttime comes, you better get home for dinner or you're in trouble. Free play with moderate risk fosters fear confrontation. Now, that doesn't sound good, fear confrontation. Actually, it is good. If I'm out there playing football and I'm running with the ball and I see these 3 guys coming at me, there's going to be fear. Uh-oh. But you know what? I got through them, or I got around them, or they got me, but I survived, and wow, that was fun. Yeah. Oh, okay, now I know not to be so afraid of it next time. Fear confrontation. That's what free play does. And so when we let our kids out there to play, they're experiencing some of that. And they're learning and growing as a result. They're becoming stronger as a result. But if we keep them at home, if we keep them on the screen, what are they learning from that? Are they going to learn fear confrontation, or are they going to become risk aversive? Competency development occurs when they're out there playing and having a good time. Confidence building occurs when they're out there having a good time. Physical risk-taking has antiphobic effects, unlike digital risk-taking, like playing games on the screen or social media, which can increase anxiety. Well, we see that occurring. If we see it occurring, why aren't we doing anything about it? And of course, so many changes in our lifetimes with technology and all that. It takes time for change to occur. It takes time for people to pay attention. It takes time for governments to spend money on something that, unless they don't have to do it. And so we need to spend more time, talk more about it. And it starts at home. It's up to you, mom and dad, to do those right things in setting schedules and whatever else that may need to occur to help our kids get out there and play outside, not inside. The rise of safetyism since 1980s and 90s has been significant. Parental attitudes in Anglo countries have shifted towards heightened fearfulness. And there's some influencing factors: sensationalized media and a 24/7 news cycle. Now, my dad, when I was growing up, my dad and mom, they were workers. They were working hard in their business. They had the motel business, but it came home. Mom made us a wonderful meal. We sat in the kitchen eating our meal at the table with the TV set, little TV set. Back then, you didn't have those big ones. Little TV set on the counter, watching the news. My dad always had to watch the news, 7 o'clock to 7:30. Huntley Brinkley back then, the NBC News, Huntley Brinkley, every night. And we're eating, we're talking, and the news is on, and he's paying attention to all of it. Well, nowadays, you can't help but get the news. It's just constantly shooting at you through anything. You're looking at the screen, and here comes a notification, and here's this, and here's that. It's not between 7 and 7:30 at night. It's all day long. It's constant. Emphasis on physical and emotional safety above all else is safetyism. Overprotected children struggle with autonomy and independence. Well, some biblical insights. James chapter 1, verses 2 through 4. I'm not going to read it all, but consider it pure joy when facing trials, it says. Trials produce perseverance, produces endurance. Romans chapter 5, verses 3 to 5 tells us suffering produces endurance. Now, I don't like that word suffering. I don't want to suffer, especially the older I get, the less I want to suffer. But you know what? A little bit of suffering is a good thing, and that makes us stronger, but it helps us to try a little harder. It's that wind that keeps us resistant and keeps us strong. Suffering produces endurance. Endurance produces character, and character produces hope, and hope doesn't put us to shame. Wow. Think about that for a minute. Endurance produces character. Are we helping our kids produce character when they're on the screen all day long? Are they producing character if they're out there playing? If they're out there taking those little risks, those healthy risks? If they're out there having a good time with others? Yeah, they're developing character out there. Are they developing it in here at the computer or with the mobile app or whatever? The Bible says that works. Of course, they didn't have computers back then, so they didn't have that to compare to, but they're saying that works. Shielding children from hardship hinders their ability to develop faith and resilience. The attachment system in healthy development is part of endurance, and it's part of growing and thriving. Secure attachment allows children to explore with confidence. Overly fearful parenting does the reverse. It prevents children from learning autonomy, from being independent, from not having too many doubts about making a decision. Healthy doubts are okay, but they can make the decisions, and they're not afraid to make the decisions. It disrupts balance between protection and exploration, taking that little extra risk, stepping on the side rather than stepping on that rock. Bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord, the Bible tells us. So we want to go forward. We want to take that path forward around that rock, stepping where it's safer and better. And to do that, we need to find strategies that foster resilience, encourage real-world play and challenges, limit digital immersion and distractions, teach children to view struggles as growth opportunities. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth, the Bible tells us. That's an important example, and let's talk about that for a moment. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor rich in meaning. Arrows are not static objects. They have to be crafted and aimed, launched toward specific target. We launch our children towards a specific target. This metaphor implies several spiritual and psychological aspects. Purpose and direction is one of them. We need to give our kids purpose and direction. Just as an arrow is designed to hit a mark, children are meant to fulfill God's unique purposes. We talk often about Proverbs 22:6, where it tells us, train up the child in the way they should go, and when he or she is old, he or she will not depart from it. They might rebel. They're not going to forget it, though. It's there. The seed's been planted, and if they're ready, it's going to bear fruit. They're going to remember that training that we gave them in the family. Parental guidance shapes the trajectory of a child's life. Preparation and training is the next most important thing. Arrows require shaping and sharpening. Similarly, raising children requires training. Another word might be disciplining. They require discipline, or they require training, instruction, and moral development. If we're not giving that to them in the home, how are they going to get it? From the screen? No, it's not going to happen. Hebrews 12:11 affirms that. No discipline or therapy is enjoyable at the time. It's painful. But if we're not talking about inflicting physical pain on your child. We're talking about the suffering that occurs when there's resistance, when there's instruction and discipline, and it's making us stronger. We're making our bed in a better fashion because we have to do it over again because we didn't do it at all, or we did it very poorly. Okay, let's do it again until we get it right. Well, all right, now that's pain and suffering, but it's not a physical pain and suffering. And I'm using making the bed as an example because this morning I did not make my bed. I was running late and I just kind of threw things together, and I don't like missing that because I like to come home and have a nice bed that's made, ready for the evening. If intelligently cooperated with, it results in healing of mind, development of Christ-like character, and a peace of heart. I have a peace of heart when I come home at night and my bed is made. Well, that's a silly example, but you know what? Kids, they have a peace of mind when they've had a good time out there and they come home to a safe home, to a loving home, and to a home where they know dad and mom are protecting them, establishing boundaries, and following tradition, we might say, in that they know what to expect. And because they know what to expect and it's safe, then they want to be back home. They enjoy being there and, okay, it's safe, I can rest, I can be able to get back out there tomorrow again. I felt that way when I was a kid, and I'm sure many of you did as well. Well, the third important thing is spiritual warfare. The warrior imagery suggests the raising children is not merely a domestic responsibility, but a spiritual battle. Ephesians 6:12 reminds believers that for our struggle is not against flesh and blood with man-made weapons, but against all individuals, entities, and powers that misrepresent God and darken minds, against Satan, the originator of lies about God, and his cohorts who also misrepresent God in heavenly realms. Parents, it's important to equip our children with biblical truth to withstand the world's spiritual challenges. So these aspects of facing the world, this metaphor of using the arrow, helps us to understand that, gosh, as a parent, we're training our kids up to be warriors out there, to make it in the world. And then we start growing and we go into puberty, one of the most dynamic phases of brain development. Neural pruning and myelination, that refining of pathways for efficiency, occurs around that puberty time. And so when you think about it, between 9 and 10, the brain now forms some new parts that allows a child to abstractly think, to put together, not just memorize 2 + 2 is 4, but to understand why that 4 is there, why it comes to that conclusion, and how you can deviate from that in different ways. And so math in school is getting a little more complicated as a result, because the brain in the adolescent is now able to grasp that where they couldn't grasp that sooner. And children now understand a little bit better the concepts of getting home on time, doing their homework, going to bed on time. They're understanding that, yeah, there's good things that come out of that, instead of just trusting the feelings to do what they do. Screen media replaces real-world interactions. It's replacing what's out there. Screen media, screen stuff is important. That's the future. It's technology. We can't get around that. It's there. We can't pretend it's under a rock. So what do we do with it? We have to balance it, keep it balanced. So we got to send our kids out there to have a good time as well. Decreased emotional regulation occurs if they're spending too much time on the screen. Exposure to algorithm-driven content instead of personal experiences. The brain's important. They're rewiring the brain of a child. If you don't allow balance, if you're not giving balance to your children, driving them to Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or the gym or karate or whatever, the example might be. If you're not taking them to these places, to the birthday parties, to the social functions, the school functions, and so on, if you're not doing all of that, you're not helping your child to thrive. You're rewiring their brain because the screen is rewiring the brain. You might not personally be doing it by not doing what they should be doing and getting them out there. You're allowing the screen to rewire their brain, and that's what's happening. Safetyism as a developmental hindrance. Overemphasis on safety blocks risk-taking. That's what we've been talking about. Children must learn to navigate natural consequences. Again, we come back to Proverbs 22:6. Start them off right. If you start them off right, they're well on their way. And believe me, if you start them off right in their adolescence, you're going to have an easier time as a parent. If you don't start them off right, adolescence is going to be very difficult for you as a parent in handling that. Smartphones are experience blockers. Yes, we need them. Yes, it's the future. Let's keep a balance going there. The dominance of screens replaces rich sensory experiences. Lack of real-world engagement affects social skills, cognitive growth, and spiritual development. If they're going to thrive, we need to keep all of that in balance. Let the children come to me, Jesus said, without any barriers or hindrances, for God's kingdom of love belongs to people just like these. Raising anti-fragile children requires encouraging risk and exploration, balancing safety and independence, aligning child rearing and biblical principles, balance. Resilience isn't inherited, it's cultivated through challenge and experience. Children must be prepared for the world, not shielded from it. Get them out there, play ball with them, play in the sand with them, do things together with them. You're helping them to thrive when you do. Well, next time we're going to get into part 3 of this, of the cognitive development and screen media. We're going to be discussing the rites of passage and the loss of milestones. So I hope you'll join us. Please give us a like if you got something out of this today. May your troubles be minor, blessings more, and happiness come through your door. See you next time. God bless.